राइट, सो ऑलमोस्ट 140 पेजेस का कंटेंट हमने कवर कर लिया है। केस सिनारियो 1 to 28 डन, और अब हमें कवर करना है एमसीक्यूज फ्रॉम दी केस सिनारियो फ्रॉम 29 to 35, सो दैट एक माइलस्टोन अचीव हो जाए कि हाँ, जो भी ICAI का बुकलेट इशू हुआ है रिगार्डिंग दी एमसीक्यू, वो सारा हमने कवर कर लिया। हमें अच्छा प्रैक्टिस हो गया, आइडिया आ गई कि एग्जाम में कैसे टाइप के एमसीक्यू के क्वेश्चंस आते हैं, और एक कॉन्फिडेंस बिल्ड हो गया कोई पर्टिकुलर आंसर को, ऑप्शन को सिलेक्ट करने के बाद उससे डटे रहने के, कि अगर बी को सिलेक्ट किया है तो मन ऐसे नहीं बोलता है अरे यार ए भी तो ठीक ही था, अरे यार सी क्यों नहीं, ऐसा नहीं होता है। देयर इज सम सॉर्ट ऑफ अ कॉन्फिडेंस जो डेवलप हो गया है। ओके राइट, तो अब तो मंजिल बस कुछ ही देर दूर है, कुछ ही टाइम दूर है ना, कि इतनी सारी मेहनत कर रहे हो सीए फाइनल की प्रेपरेशंस में, अब काफी सारा एंजाइटी बिल्ड हो रहा होगा। तो अगर ये एंजाइटी बिल्ड हो रहा है तो सबसे पहली बात मैं आपको बता दूं कि ये कंप्लीटली नॉर्मल है ना, कि जैसे जब हम पानी को गैस पे गर्म करने के लिए रखते हैं, तो जैसे ही गर्म करने रखते हैं तो इट्स ओके, मतलब हम लोग वो पानी में हाथ भी डाल सकते हैं। बट अगर वो पानी गैस के ऊपर आधा घंटा है और फिर वो पानी ऐसे उबल रहा है, ऐसे बबल्स आ रहे हैं ऊपर ऐसे, तो फिर तो वो एकदम उबलता हुआ पानी है ना, क्योंकि वो कंटिन्यूअस अंडर हीट है ना, फॉर द लास्ट हाफ एन आवर, है ना। तो जैसे ही आप भी पिछले 4 महीने 6 महीने आप कंटिन्यूअसली पढ़ रहे हो, तो अभी तो ऑब्वियसली फुल है ना, पूरा बॉइलिंग चल रहा होगा। तो अगर ये बॉइलिंग चल रहा है तो ये एब्सोल्युटली नॉर्मल है। अभी भी अगर आप एकदम ऐसे एकदम आराम से लाइफ चल रही है तो प्रोबेबली देयर इज समथिंग व्हिच नीड्स टू बी लुक्ड इनटू। पर अगर बॉइलिंग हो रहा है, हाँ, तो ऐसे गरम गरम पानी लेके ही हमें एग्जाम हॉल में लेके जाना है। इसी को वो प्रेशर बोलते हैं जिसे हमें हैंडल करना है। ओके, आज के 1 साल बाद तुम ऐसे सोचोगे कि हाँ, उस वक्त मैंने वो वैसे सीए फाइनल का पढ़ाई किया था, फिर कोई अपने जूनियर को एडवाइस दोगे कि उस वक्त वो आरती मैम का वीडियोस आया था यूट्यूब पे, वो मैंने कंटेंट देखा था, फिर मैंने ये बुक रेफर की थी। मतलब तुम एकदम ऐसे एडवाइजरी रोल में आ जाओगे कि कैसे तुमने सीए फाइनल को अप्रोच किया, क्या तुम्हारी स्ट्रैटेजी थी। बट ऑब्वियसली उसके लिए तो अभी तुम्हें पढ़ना होगा। ऐसे तो पता है सीए फाइनल की जर्नी, जैसे इंडिया से यूएस की डायरेक्ट फ्लाइट 18 घंटे की होती है, वैसे सीए फाइनल की जर्नी है ना, फ्रॉम बीइंग अ नॉन सीए टू बिकमिंग अ चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट की जर्नी भी 18 घंटे की होती है। 18 घंटे कैसे, 19 घंटे है ना, क्योंकि 6 पेपर है, उसमें से एक पेपर 4 घंटे का है, बाकी पेपर 3 घंटे के है, तो 6 3 18 + 1 19 आवर्स। बस ये 19 आवर्स, तुम बोलोगे मैम ये 19 आवर्स के लिए आपको आइडिया है कितनी तपस्या करनी पड़ती है? अरे मुझे तो पूरी आइडिया है, क्योंकि हमारे टाइम तो 8 पेपर होते थे। ओके राइट, तो एनीवेज कि ये 19 आवर्स का जो आपका फिनाले होगा, जो आपका ग्रैंड परफॉर्मेंस होगा एफआर और एफएम और ऑडिट और डीटी आईडीटी और आईबीएस के पेपर में, उसके बेसिस पे डिटरमाइन होगा कि आपके कितने सब्जेक्ट्स में एग्जामिशन आए हैं, आपको कितने कौन सा ऑल इंडिया रैंक आया है, आपको रिजल्ट के बाद कितने सारे इंटरव्यूज देने पड़ेंगे, फिर उसके बाद आपको कितना सारा कैंपस प्लेसमेंट अप्लाई करना पड़ेगा, बिग 4 में अप्लाई करना पड़ेगा, तो कितना सारा काम करना है ना। फिर कोई तो सोचते हैं कि हाँ पढ़ाना भी है, ये करना है, स्टार्टअप करना है, तो लगे रहना है। मतलब ये तो बस इट्स जस्ट व्हाट यू से ऑथेंटिकेशन ऑफ यू एज अ प्रोफेशनल बिकमिंग अ चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट, है ना। तो बिल्कुल ऐसे सोल्जर के तरह डट के एकदम एग्जाम को अप्रोच करना है। वो 3 आवर्स, कोई एक पेपर का कैस्केडिंग इफेक्ट अगले पेपर पे नहीं आना चाहिए, एब्सोल्युटली। मतलब वो ऑब्जेक्टिवली उस पर्टिकुलर पेपर को एक कंपार्टमेंट में डालना है कि एफआर की मैटर्स एफआर के पेपर में, उनका इफेक्ट एफएम या ऑडिट पे नहीं आना चाहिए, है ना। एकदम ऑब्जेक्टिव कंपार्टमेंट क्रिएट करके इन सब्जेक्ट को हमें अप्रोच करना है। और अपनी साइड से कभी भी ऐसे लग रहा है कि ग्राफ के नीचे जा रहा है, मोरल डाउन जा रहा है, तो प्लीज इंश्योर कि सेल्फ पिकिंग मैकेनिज्म है ना, सेल्फ मोटिवेशन मैकेनिज्म, कि आप अलाउ ही नहीं करते हो अपने ग्राफ को नीचे गिरने को, है ना। आप कंटिन्यूअसली उसको मेंटेन करते हो, थोड़ा भी अंदाजा आ रहा है कि गड़बड़ हो रही है, फिर से अपने आप को पिकअप कर लिया। तो ऐसे कंसिस्टेंसी मेंटेन करना, और 1 year डाउन द लाइन 1 year क्या 1 minute आफ्टर द रिजल्ट, once you come to know that CA, the prefix CA is to be attached before your name, and the entire world will change for you. ओके राइट। तो आई एम सो हैप्पी कि आप मेरे साथ ये पूरे एमसीक्यू के जर्नी में अटैच हुए ना, एसोसिएट हुए कि राइट फ्रॉम एमसीक्यू 1 अप टू एमसीक्यू 28 आपने कंटेंट देखा और अब आप राह देख रहे हो कि मैम आप 29 कब शुरू करोगे। तो ऑब्वियसली डोंट वरी, वही मैं डिस्कस करने के लिए मैं पर्टिकुलर ये वीडियो बना रही हूँ। सिर्फ एक रिक्वेस्ट जो ऑलरेडी मैंने बाकी सारे वीडियोज में भी की है कि मेरी ऐसी इच्छा है कि पैन इंडिया है ना, कि स्टूडेंट फ्रॉम पंजाब टू चंडीगढ़ टू कोलकाता टू सूरत टू अहमदाबाद टू जयपुर, उदयपुर एंड इंदौर एंड कर्नाटका, हैदराबाद, तमिलनाडु, तिरुवनंतपुरम, ऑल अक्रॉस पैन इंडिया, टू पुट इट एज सिंपल, कि सारे स्टूडेंट्स तक ये पर्टिकुलर कंटेंट पहुंचे, है ना। तो प्लीज वो काम आप लोग ही कर सकते हो। मैं यहाँ बैठ के ये काम कर सकती हूँ कि मैं ये कंटेंट रिकॉर्ड कर सकती हूँ और आपके लिए ये बेनिफिशियल हो, ये मेरी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है। बट इसको मैक्सिमम स्टूडेंट्स तक पहुंचाना, उसमें आपसे बेटर मुझे और कोई ब्रांड एम्बेसडर नहीं मिल सकता है, राइट। तो प्लीज एज अ काइंड जेस्चर, प्लीज लाइक, शेयर एंड सब्सक्राइब टू दिस पर्टिकुलर to the Aarti Lahoti Audit Learning YouTube channel and share this particular series with your friends. Okay, right. तो चलो, अब coming to the case scenario 29, है ना। Kochhar and associates are refreshing up their knowledge on functions of the various parliamentary financial committees and on the varied functions and duties of CNAG in relation to audit of government institutions and government company. They recognize that a thorough understanding of the CAG responsibilities is essential for conducting audits effectively in this sector. So we know that this particular MCQ is related to the chapter of the PA, right? The public sector undertaking audit, right? Audit of PSUs. Okay, to enhance their knowledge, they have reviewed various resources, both online and offline, including the official CNAG website. Below is a summary of the key insights drawn from their research. In one of its report, the CNAG, in respect of the state government-owned industrial development corporation, pointed out to non-adherence of one-time settlement guidelines of state government by the corporation, resulting in acceptance of a below par OTS proposal, thus foregoing the recovery of loan amounting to 8.52 crore. The said corporation was providing loans to the industrial units. Another CNAG report for a particular year contained results of the compliance audit of the Department of Revenue, direct taxes of the union government dealing with assessment related to agricultural income. It includes certain observations related to allowing claim for exemption of agricultural income without the supporting documents, use of this area by non-agriculturists as a conduct to avoid taxes, etc. in scrutiny assessment performed by the department. In another case, the state government-owned PSU was involved in the construction of a thermal power plant in the state. CNAG in its audit report pointed out delay in the completion of work due to failure to decide on the type of water treatment in the cooling plant on a timely basis. Besides other reasons leading to delay, like frequent changes in layout and retesting of soil by the company, were pointed out. Finally, Kochhar and Associates reviewed annual report of a listed public sector company, which is the Mani Ratna PSU, engaged in providing diversified services to the Indian Railway. Based on the above facts, uttar dijiye, marks lijiye. Multiple choice question. Considering the description stated in para A of the case, the above audit finding is likely to fall in which areas, right? Propriety audit, comprehensive audit, compliance audit, or the performance audit. Okay, right. So in one of the reports, the CNAG, in respect of a state government-owned industrial development corporation, pointed out the non-adherence of a one-time settlement guideline. So non-adherence means non-compliance. That means it has to be related to the compliance audit. It is not unnecessary expenditure. It is not an overall examination. You're not checking the efficiency. You're checking the compliance. So that is compliance audit. Okay. In para B of the case, which parliamentary financial committee, so estimates committee, public accounts committee, or the committee on the public undertaking, is likely to examine the above report of the CNAG and make its recommendations. Okay, right. So it says the assessment related to the agricultural income. So Department of the Revenue, right? So government departments. So government departments that is looked into by the PAC, the Public Accounts Committee, right? So government departments that is looked into the Public Accounts Committee. Had it been the government company, then it would have come under the COPU, the Committee on the Public Undertaking. But because this is Department of Revenue, it comes under the Public Accounts Committee. Okay. Considering the nature of the audit finding in the case of delay in completion of the work of the thermal power plant, the said audit finding is to be falling in the domain of, right, financial audit, no unnecessary expenditure, no compliance audit, no, it is the performance audit, right? It is the performance audit wherein you're seeing that there is a delay. That means the performance has not been proper. Which of the following statement is most appropriate with regard to the listed PSU stated in para D, Mini Ratna, and engaged in providing diversified service to the Indian Railways? Okay, the statutory audit of the above PSU is to be conducted by a firm of auditor appointed by C&AG. Correct. So can they appoint PwC also? Yes, as an example. For the C&AG can give directions to the firm of auditor regarding the work to be done. Okay. Statutory auditor of above PSU is to be conducted by a firm of auditor appointed by shareholders in AGM. C&AG cannot give the directions to such auditor. Its purpose is empowered to conduct supplementary audit. Yeah, supplementary audit, but shareholders don't appoint the auditor. A statutory audit of PSU is to be done by auditors appointed by shareholder? No. Statutory audit of the PSU is to be conducted by C&AG? No. It is to be done by the auditors who are appointed by the C&AG, and they can also give directions to this auditor. PSU engagement are generally attestation engagement or the direct reporting engagement. Which of the following statement is correct in this regard? Right. So performance audit is a direct reporting engagement, whereas compliance audit is an attestation engagement, right? What is an attestation engagement? Wherein the subject matter being reviewed against the criteria is done by the management, the responsible party, and auditor only gives the assurance. Whereas in case of the direct reporting engagement, it is the auditor, the C&AG, who checks the subject matter against the criteria. Okay, right? So performance audit, it is the C&AG who checks the subject matter against the criteria. So that is a direct reporting engagement, right? So performance audit is an attestation engagement? No. Performance audit and compliance audit are generally the direct reporting engagement, and then performance audit and compliance audit are generally the attestation engagement? No, they are not the attestation engagement. So now we have to select between A and C. So performance audit is a direct reporting engagement, whereas compliance audit is an attestation engagement. No, there again the C&AG checks the subject matter against the criteria, right? It is not the management who checks the subject matter against the criteria. That is for financial audit. Okay, management, the government checks whether the financial statements are prepared as per AFRF, and then after that the auditor expresses an opinion saying true and fair view. Right? So both performance audit as well as compliance audit is the direct reporting engagement, and a performance audit as well as the compliance audit, both are the direct reporting engagement. If you go to the discussion regarding the basic elements of the PSU audit, right, you have the three parties, the subject matter criteria and the subject matter information, and the types of engagement in which you have the direct reporting engagement and the attestation engagement. Right? So financial audit is an example of the attestation engagement, whereas performance audit and the compliance audit is the example of the direct reporting engagement. Okay, right? So compliance audit, right? Non-adherence to OTS, one-time settlement. So to check whether the subject matter is in compliance with the criteria, that is the rules, regulations, and the agreement, right? Then the Public Accounts Committee, right? The committee looks into the various aspects of the government tax administration, right? So Department of the Revenue, right? Then performance audit, right? So it highlights the delay. This audit finding falls in the domain of the performance audit as it looks into the 3 E's: efficiency, economy, and the effectiveness, right? Under the provisions of the Companies Act, the firm of auditor appointed by the C&AG does the audit of the PSU, and further directions can also be given. And both performance audit and the compliance audit are the direct reporting engagement. In direct reporting engagement, it is the auditor, that is the CNAG, who measures the subject matter against the criteria. And performance audit, it says it's an independent assessment of the government program project activity. And compliance audit, wherein you check whether the subject matter is in compliance with the criteria. Right, so yeah, entire MCQ case scenario number 29 is related to the PSU chapter. Okay, right. Then after that, now coming to the 30 series, right? So now coming to the case scenario 30. ABC is in the business of trading garments. Within a span of 5 years since its incorporation, the company has gained a good market reputation. Last year in its Kochi warehouse, the inventory was less than 1% of the total inventory value. So the auditor, instead of witnessing or performing the physical count of inventory, relied upon the management's inventory confirmation, and management in turn relied upon the warehouse keeper's stock register without verifying the actual count. The same year, there was some difference between the store register and the books of account closing balance. The management considered it to be an immaterial amount and wrote it off to miscellaneous P&L. In the current year, while performing analytical procedure, the auditor saw a significant reduction in the sales through Kochi warehouse, wherein there was a spike in freight charges of the Kochi. Through further examination, the auditor noticed that there was an increase number of shipments to Kochi, an increase in the number of the invoice cancellation instances and sales return instances from the customers of the GST unregistered category. However, this year the inventory lying at the Kochi is 4.5% as per books. The auditor inquired on the periodicity of physical verification and sales process through Kochi warehouse. The management gave the following response to the auditor. Physical verification takes place once in every 6 months, and the warehouse keeper is responsible for the physical verification and sending records back to the head office. No, the person who has access to the asset should not have access to the books. Accounting and custodial function should be segregated. Because of low operations in the past year, the warehouse keeper himself takes care of the invoicing and the dispatch of the goods. One man show. And a monthly invoice details along with the monthly stock register is sent to the head office. Further, this year too, there is difference among the inventory as per the books, as per the stock register, and inventory as per the physical verification in the descending order. The auditor decided to visit the Kochi warehouse and conduct the root cause analysis and get the correct closing value of the inventory. After the visit, the auditor concluded that the warehouse keeper was issuing the stocks with invoices. However, on the sales return, the credit notes were issued to various customers and the entry was made in the stock register of goods received on sales return. But physically, the goods were never returned. The auditor also doubted that the same instance might have happened last year, as because there is difference between the physical stock and the books. On this information, the management has asked the auditor why this was not brought to the notice last year and whether the audit was not conducted properly then. Last year it said it was just 1% or something. That is why it was immaterial. Okay, why this was not brought to the notice last year? Right, because there was a difference. On this information, the management has asked the auditor why this was not brought to notice. To this, the auditor contended that last year the inventory was not in the sampling materiality level at the Kochi warehouse. Further, a consultant was appointed by the management for the overview of the internal control with regard to verification of inventory and for suggesting the recommendations. Based on the above, answer the question. Which according to you is the correct statement in the context of the aforesaid case scenario? Only the errors can be expected to be identified during the audit. Only the statutory compliance can be expected out of a statutory audit. The auditor contends that last year the inventory balance and the Kochi were not in the sampling materiality level and therefore the issue was not identified. This is a part of the audit risk. The management is of the view that all the frauds and errors must have been identified by the statutory auditor. So which is the correct statement? All frauds, errors? No. Detection of fraud and error is not the primary objective of the audit. Only errors can be expected to be found out by the identified during the audit? No. We have both financial statements, reasonable assurance that they are free from material misstatement. Misstatement could be due to fraud or it may be due to error. Only statutory compliance? No. We don't have to say true and correct. We have to say true and fair. Okay, the auditor contends that last year the inventory levels in the Kochi were not in the sampling materiality level and therefore the issue was not identified. This is a part of the audit risk. Okay, which components of audit risk are represented in the aforesaid scenario? Inherent risk, control risk detection risk, fraud risk due to the nature and size of operations and high likelihood of fraud due to its significant risk of error because there was an error in the presentation in the financial statement last year. So these 2 points look like the filler, because technically we have the words inherent risk, control risk and detection risk. Inherent risk is due to nature of business or operation and control risk is due to the inappropriate design and the ineffective implementation of the internal control. 100% true. There is no proper segregation of duties, warehouse keeper, one-man show. And detection risk is due to the possibility of auditor not identifying the risk of misstatement, right? So auditor may not detect a misstatement that exists, right? So it's not due to the nature of business or operation, it is due to the possibility of auditor not identifying the RMM. Okay, which internal control seems to have compromised at the root cause over here? Lack of safeguarding the assets, lapse in compliance control leading to non-compliance of sharing inventory level with the GST department, segregation of duty, inadequate records and documents related to the leading to the non-recording of the correct inventory value. Which basic internal control has been compromised over here? Segregation of duty. No single person should handle a transaction from the beginning to the end. There has to be division of work. Okay, with segregation of duties aspect seems to have been compromised also. In the question number 4, you have the answer for the question number 3. Okay, with segregation of duty seems to have been compromised here, right? So is it related to authorization, execution, record keeping, authorization, execution, custodianship, record keeping, custodian, record keeping and authorization. So one, certainly we have an issue regarding the custody, that the person who is having the custody of the assets, he is only doing the physical verification and he is only doing the invoicing also. So invoicing also, custody also and invoicing also, right? So custodianship, record keeping and also doing the execution, right? So that is why we'll not select the authorization, execution, record keeping. Why? Because we want that point which has the custodian, right? So that is why A cannot be the answer. And we also invoice keeping is also be done. So that is why we also want the point regarding the record keeping and also the execution of the transaction, right? So that is why C would be the answer. Okay, right. So it says the auditor, this is detection risk, the part of audit risk and was unidentified because it was not considered material. Right. Internal controls could not ensure the prevention of these instances, that is control risk. An auditor could not detect because of out of scope sampling, that is detection risk. Right. Segregation of duty, what is the most golden term? No one person, no single person can complete a transaction from the beginning to the end. In the present case, the warehouse keeper is responsible for physical verification of stock, for invoicing, for dispatching the goods from the warehouse, which implies that there is no segregation of the duty. Storekeeper was executing the sale, keeping custody of the goods and keeping the store records as well. Right? So yes, I could say that this particular case scenario number 30, it is all related to inventory physical verification. So that is SA 501, audit evidence specific consideration for selected item. The first selected item over there, existence and condition of inventory. Okay. Right, coming to case scenario 31. Royal Bank of India is a public sector bank, right, founded in the year 1964. The bank has 183 branches all over India as on 31st March 24. Total deposits of the bank was 50,000 crore. The motto of the bank is royalty lies in loyalty. Wow. Wow. The statutory auditors for 24 are PK and Associates. The audit manager of the firm, while reviewing the advances, noticed the following. The advance granted to Mr. X has been guaranteed by state government. However, said advance is overdue since November 2023. It has to be treated as an NPA in the normal course. As on 20th of April, the ad hoc limit of the account of Mr. Y has not been reviewed even though 120 days of the date of ad hoc sanction were over. The above advances have been given by the Meerut branch. However, this branch is not subject to concurrent audit. The bank has also granted term loan of 20 crore to Samarth Limited, an unlisted company, on 1st February. The sanction letter read as follows. The facility will be used payment of unsecured loan to the promoters 10 crore, development and construction expenses other than land cost of the company new office to be situated in Faridabad, Haryana 10 crore. Okay, so other than the land cost. Okay. Company has utilized the facility as follows as on 31st of March 24. Land purchased for new office, development and construction expense of new office, repayment of unsecured loan to promoter, investment in fixed deposit 2 crore temporarily. Okay. Company's total borrowings from all banks as on 31st of March is 60 crore. Royal Bank of India is the parent organization 100% holding of the Royal General Insurance Company. The statutory auditor of Royal General Insurance are AK & Company Chartered Accountants firm based in Mumbai. The brief financial information is given as under: value of assets, amount of liabilities and the capital. Mr. P, partner in PK & Associates, also acts as a surveyor loss assessor under the Insurance Act. However, he has not intimated or taken any permission from the Council of the ICAI. No permission required. Surveyor loss assessor under the Insurance Act. AK & Company have not included a report on Caro in their statutory audit report for 23-24 for Royal General Insurance Company. So, Insurance Company, Caro not applicable. Based on the above facts, answer the following. Okay. As the statutory auditor of Samarth Limited, identify the aggregate amount which will be reported under clause 9 of the Caro on account of utilization of term loans for purpose other than those for which they were obtained. So, money which has been used for other than the purpose for which they have been obtained. So 4, 5, 7 and 2. Okay, right. So what does it say? It will be used for unsecured, repayment of unsecured loan to the promoter. So is that allowed? Yes. Then towards development and reconstruction expenses other than the land cost. So again, is this allowed? Yes. For the development and the reconstruction expenses other than the land cost, it says it will be allowed. And for the company's new office to be situated, right, in Haryana, 10 crore. Okay. Now, what is the amount which has been given? Other than the land cost, right? So bank granted a term loan. The will be used for repayment of the unsecured loan. So unsecured loan to the promoters, how much it was? 10 crore. Now actually how much has been used? Only 3 crore. Okay, right. Development and construction expenses other than land cost, how much is approved? 10 crore. But how much have they used? 11 crore. So 1 crore will not be allowed. No, 1 crore will not be allowed. Then land purchased for the new office. What did it say? Other than the land cost. So again, this 4 crore will not be allowed. And investment in the FD. Temporarily, the funds have not been used for the purpose for which they have been raised. So that is for the 2 crore. Right. So out of the, 4, 11, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Right. So that's the breakup of the 20 crore. And out of 20 crore, 4 crore for the land because it says other than land cost. Then how much is the amount for the construction development expenses? 10 crore, which is approved. How much have they incurred? 11 crore. So 1 crore is excess. And investment in FD temporarily, that is 2 crore. Right. So 7 crore of the money has not been used for the purpose for which it has been raised. Okay. As an audit manager of the firm, advise which advance shall be classified as the non-performing asset, right? Which advance will be classified as the non-performing asset, right? So we said the advance which is given to Mr. X, which is guaranteed by the state government. So that will be classified as an NPA. And on 20th of April, the ad hoc limit has not been reviewed even though 120 days. So limits not reviewed within 180 days. Now here how much it is? 120 days. So that is why is this to be treated as an NPA? No, it is not to be treated as an NPA. So only Mr. X is to be treated as an NPA, not Mr. Y is not to be treated as an NPA. Right? So Mr. X. Okay, whether the acting as a surveyor and loss assessor is in violation of clause 11 of part 1 of the first schedule to the Chartered Accountants Act. Yes, as specific permission from the council shall be required. No, as general permission from the council has been granted. No, as specific permission from the council can be obtained at any point of time. Yes, as general permission is not granted for the above occupation. No, as general permission from the council has been granted. Acting as surveyor and loss assessor under the Insurance Act. And whether AK & Company is correct in not including a report on the Caro in their statutory audit report, right? AK & Company, they are doing the audit of the insurance company, right, of the Royal General Insurance Company, and they've not included the Caro in their report. Yes, since Caro is not applicable to insurance company, no, since Caro is applicable to public company, no, since Caro is applicable only in case of wholly owned subsidiary company, no, since Caro is applicable to insurance company, right? So what does it say? Is the auditor correct? Yes, and since Caro will not be applicable to insurance company. Right, since Caro will not be applicable to insurance company. Okay, as per clause 9C of the Caro, whether the term loans have they been applied for the purpose for which they have been obtained. If not, the amount of loan diverted and the purpose for which it has been diverted. Right, so land purchased for new office 4 crore, development construction expense 1 crore, investment in FD 2 crore. So that is the total of the 7 crore. Right, then state government guaranteed advances is to be treated as an NPA once they are overdue for more than 90 days. Right, no, as general permission from the council, it says generally permitted to act as surveyor and loss assessor, and Caro is not applicable to insurance companies. Okay, right, so that is our MC case scenario number 31. Now coming to 32. Papa Limited is a listed nationalized bank whose face value per share is 100 each, having its operations across India. Papa Limited appointed Mr. Das, Pass and Das as the central joint auditors for 24. After making sure that all of them are qualified to be appointed as auditors, Papa Limited issued appointment letter as well as engagement letter to all of them. Engagement letter contains the details on objective and scope of audit, responsibilities of auditor, management, and the identification of the AFRF. It also contains the reference to the expected form and content of the report. Amazing. All principal contents of engagement letter there. During the year, Papa Limited has acquired another bank called Baby Limited. While finalizing the books of account, some adjustments were to be made to the effect of the merger. The adjustments were related to determination of goodwill 2 crore, determination of the amount of the minority interest of 50 lakh. Some intra-group transaction adjustment of 15 lakh were also made. Another adjustment which was to be made for the harmonization of the accounting policies of Papa and Baby Limited, which was 30 lakh, right? So permanent consolidation adjustments and the current period consolidation adjustment. So goodwill minority interest will come under the permanent, and intra-group transaction and harmonization will come under the current period consolidation adjustment. While planning the audit, all the joint auditors mutually decided that responsibility of verification of cash book will be entrusted with Mr. Pass. But Mr. Pass failed to detect the fraud committed by the cashier, which could have been easily detected had he properly checked the cash book. So that is gross negligence. This fraud was revealed in the special audit which was conducted on the directions of the RBI. Responsibility for verifying compliance with the SLR requirement was entrusted with Mr. Das. While performing audit on compliance with the SLR requirement, Mr. Das used 12 odd dates in different months of the fiscal year. Mr. Das, with his professional judgment, used the below mentioned dates, right? So April to March, and the below mentioned dates, what do we say? That statutory central auditor, you need to do the verification of the compliance with the SLR requirement on 12 odd dates in a year, not being Fridays. So that is why June, problem, July, problem, and after that October also problem, because it is Friday, Friday, Friday. Okay, TAS was entrusted with the responsibility for calculation of the DTL. On 31st of March, it stood at 200 crore. It includes margin held for funded facility, credit balance for one branch, adverse balance of Nostro Mirror account, and an unadjusted deposit for agency business. Wife of CA Das was also a chartered accountant and was actively involved in the purchase and sale of shares. She purchased 100 shares of Papa Limited of 100 each for the 15 lakh rupees. All the required communication were made among the joint auditors, and significant matters were discussed with TCWG. Okay, right, at the end, an unmodified report in accordance with SA 700 was issued, which was signed by all the three joint auditors. Which of the following statement is true as per the given situation, right? So it says permanent and the current period consolidation adjustments. Okay, right, so what is it? Goodwill 2 crore, that is 200 lakh, and minority interest of the, yes, 50 lakh, so that is 250 lakh. Okay, so let me see first where there is 250 lakh, right? 250 lakh, 280 lakh we don't like, right? Then after that, what does it say? Giving the permanent of 295, no. Then again permanent of 265, no. Permanent is 250, and then current period consolidation adjustment 15 plus 30, so that is 45, right? 15 plus 30, that is 45 lakh. Okay. Right, so 45. So for giving the effect of the merger, permanent consolidation adjustment 250 lakh and the current period consolidation adjustments of the 45 lakh were made. Okay, right. List down all the months whose date has been selected inappropriately by CA Das for calculating the SLR compliance. So what did we say? June, July and October. So wherever you have June, July and the October. Okay. While calculating SLR compliance of Papa Limited, what will be the value of the DTL? So what was the value of the DTL? 200 crore. It includes the following. Margin held. So it is held. So it is not your liability. So 200 minus 3. Credit balance for one branch. So credit means you need to pay. So it is your liability. Adverse balance of a Nostro Mirror account. So again you need to pay that adverse balance of the Nostro Mirror account of the 2 crore. And unadjusted deposit. So it's a money with you. It is not your liability. So again minus 6. So 200 minus 9 is equal to 191 crore, right? So that is 191 crore. And will CA Das be guilty of misconduct after his wife purchased shares of 100 shares of 15 lakh, right? So 100 shares of face value of rupees 100 each. So relative can hold shares up to the face value of rupees 1 lakh, right? So Das will be guilty? No. Will not be held guilty as relative hold shares of less than 20 lakh market value? Kuch bhi. Will not be guilty as relative hold shares of less than 1 lakh face value? Yes. And will be guilty as he is disqualified? No. It says Das will not be guilty as he is not disqualified as an auditor as his relative hold shares of less than 1 lakh face value. Okay, right. So it says goodwill, capital reserve, equity attributable to minority, and in current period consolidation adjustments, you have the intra-group transactions and the harmonization of accounting policy. Right. So 12 odd dates not being Fridays. Okay. Then it says these are to be excluded from the liability, margins held and the deposits. Because that's not your liability. So 200 minus 9 is 191 crore and will not be held guilty. 141 3D1 relative hold security up to the face value of rupees 1 lakh allowed. Exceeding 1 lakh then out. Disqualified to be appointed as an auditor. Okay, now coming to case scenario 33. Tom Limited is into the business of manufacturing and distribution of toys for the past 25 years. Since inception, the company has its own in-house dedicated internal audit department, having team of competent and qualified chartered accountants headed by Chia, who with systematic and disciplined approach monitors various internal controls laid down at all levels of the functional areas. Deva and Company chartered accountants have been newly appointed as the auditors for 25. Deva and Company wants to use the work of the internal audit in respect of testing of the operating effectiveness of the control and in respect of substantive procedures involving the तुम कुछ तो बोलो पूरा मैं ही बोलूं क्या limited judgment due to time constraints and extensive scope of the statutory audit. Deva and Company want to take direct assistance of internal auditors in the areas of physical verification of fixed assets, inventory verification, goodwill impairment assessments, etc. Accordingly, Deva and Company are in the process of determining in which areas and to what extent internal auditor can be used and in which areas statutory auditor will not use internal auditors to provide direct assistance to perform procedures. Deva and Company, during the course of identifying, assessing RMM through understanding entity environment and during the course of performing the audit procedure, finds that the company is holding the significant bank accounts and having branch operations in the tax haven jurisdiction for which there appears to be no clear business justification. Also, there were significant related party transactions which do not appear in the normal course of business, outside the normal course of the business, related party transaction. Right? So significant bank accounts, tax haven jurisdiction, no clear business justification. Right? So looks like they are cooking a fraud. An audit report of Tom Limited for 24 audited by predecessor auditor contained a qualification regarding provision for bad debts. In 24-25, also the company does not make a provision. Oh, this is one of the favorite case study of ICAI from SA 710. Last year there is a qualification. This year, is the matter resolved? Is the matter not resolved? Like statutory auditor in their report on the current year wants to report on the same. Pursuant to the reporting requirements under the CARO 2020 in respect of the company's regularity in depositing the undisputed dues arrears of outstanding statutory dues to the appropriate authority. Deva and company are considering to take a view on the following issue observed during the audit of term. The company is in view of the voluminous payroll data consistently follows the method of making the lump sum deposit of estimated amount of ESI collection and adjust the excess or deficit against the next following month's deposit, and the difference of the said amount is always remains insignificant. So such lump sum payment is considered to be the regular payment as given under the guidance note of the CARO. Based on the above facts, answer. Deva and company in their audit report on the current period wants to report that Tom Limited does not want to make a provision. Identify the correct action. Right? It says they can modify their report for the previous year figure, but since the audit report on the prior period as previously issued includes a qualified opinion, they can modify their report for the current year but did not refer to the previous year modification. No. Will have to modify their report for both current year and the previous year, since the auditor's report on the previous period as previously issued includes a qualified opinion and the matter has not been resolved. Go to the case study of 710, question bank of 710, and see so many times this question has come in the theory part of the paper also. Okay, cannot modify their report for earlier year modification, नहीं वो तो बस फिलर है ना, वो भी A, B, C, D भी कुछ लिखना पड़ेगा ना. Okay, right, so will have to modify their opinion both for the current year and the previous year, since the audit report on the prior period as previously issued includes a qualified opinion and the matter which gave rise to the modification has not been resolved. Okay, right. Deva and company assigned the following procedures to internal auditors to provide direct assistance. Right. So from the above, identify the appropriate procedure that can be assigned to the internal auditor. Okay, right. So that relates to high RMM. Oh my God, wherever there is higher assessed RMM, that means significant judgment. Can you take direct assistance from the internal auditor for that matter? No. Where the judgment required in performing the procedure or evaluating the evidence is more than limited, you cannot take the direct assistance. That relate to the work which auditor has performed, and the actual drafting of 610 says which will be reported or will be reporting to management TCWG, but here they've done a drafting change which will not be reported to management or TCWG by the internal audit function, and relates to the decision that the statutory auditor makes in accordance with this essay. So if statutory auditor has decided, oh, this internal auditor, no objectivity, no competence, no proper approach, he may decide not to take the direct assistance. So again, for those matters you may decide, so higher assessed RMM, no direct assistance. You have taken a decision, you don't want to take direct assistance, wonderful. And because of the modification in the sentence over here, actual sentences which is reported or will be reported to management TCWG, but they've said it which will not be reported to management TCWG. That is why 2 is the correct option. So B is 2. Right. Then issue identified. So go to essay 610. See this content over there. See the original sentence and see how they have made a change in the drafting. Okay. So that is why you have to put drops of oil in your eyes and then read the answer. Okay. Issue or the options. Issue identified by Deva and company with regard to holding the significant bank accounts and having branch operations in tax haven jurisdiction and significant related party transaction is a fraud risk factor. Number 24 also they ask this question. What is the condition created by the fraud risk factor and what fraud does it result into? Okay, right. So what does it say? Now, related party transaction, does it give rise to the fraudulent financial reporting or to the misappropriation of asset? So one, it gives rise to the fraudulent financial reporting. It does not give rise to the misappropriation of the asset. Okay. Now, what does it say? Tax haven jurisdiction, significant bank account, related party transaction. Is it a rationalization for a fraud or is it an opportunity for doing the fraudulent financial reporting? Obviously, it is an opportunity to do the fraud in the accounting because you have related party transactions, significant bank accounts in the tax haven jurisdiction. So that gives you a opportunity to do the fraud in the accounting. Okay, and out of the following, which view of Deva and company is correct one for complying with the reporting requirement under CARO as regards the lump sum deposit of the estimated ESI collection and its adjustment against the next month, leaving the insignificant difference of the ESI amount. Right, so the company consistently follows the method of payment of ESI and the difference is not significant as per materiality concept. It needs not be considered that dues have not been regularly deposited. So need not be considered that they've not been regularly deposited. It says the deposit of ESI collection and arrears of due cannot be considered as statutory dues. Kuch bhi. Lump sum deposit of estimated ESI amount and adjusting excess deposit against the following month shall be considered as dues payable and hence to be reported under CARO. बच्चा जो पढ़ के नहीं जाता है वो ये वाला आंसर सेलेक्ट करता है. ओके, ये वो लोग हैं जो इंस्टीट्यूट की एग्जाम फी भरते रहते हैं. Okay, ठीक है. Even though the difference between total dues of ESI and lump sum deposit is not significant as per materiality concept, it shall be considered that dues have not been regularly deposited and hence need to be reported. अरे बाबा नहीं रे, ऐसा नहीं है. What does it say? Need not be considered that dues have not been regularly deposited and hence not to be reported. Okay, right. So if the auditor's report on the prior period as previously issued has a modified opinion and the matter which gives rise to the modification is not resolved, auditor will modify the opinion on the current period also. Right. Then the external auditor will not use the internal auditor work for direct assistance related to higher assessed RMM or decision the external auditor makes in accordance with this SA. Then it says the nature of the industry or the entity's operations that can give rise to the engage in FFR can come from the significant bank accounts in the tax 7 jurisdiction where there is no clear business justification. And as per clause 7A, the auditor is required to report whether the company is regular in depositing and the difference is not significant. Therefore, it will be considered, need not be considered that dues have not been regularly deposited. That means dues are regularly deposited. Oh my God, we have come to the second last one. है ना, ऐसे उंगली पकड़ के तूने चलना सिखाया था ना, वैसे मैंने उंगली पकड़ के तुमको सारे केस सिनारियो एक एक करके करवाए. कोई नहीं, चलो, है ना. XYZ and Associates LLP is a firm of chartered accountants consisting of 12 partners has been allotted CSA of Mahabank Limited, a scheduled commercial bank. As a part of the scope, the audit team has been asked to find out the correct position of DTL of Mahabank. DTL balance as on September 30, 2024 was 50,000 crore, which includes the following. Just imagine one day in your bank account 50,000 crore. 50,000 40. Then after that, more 7 zeros. Oh, okay, right. Come back. Okay, paid up capital reserve, credit balance in PNL, loan taken from RBI, refinance taken from Exim Bank and National Housing Board, part amount of recovery from the borrower, net credit balance in the branch adjustment account, interest accrued but not accounted for, margins held and kept in sundry deposit for the funded facility. During the year 24-25, XYZ and Associates LLP is appointed as auditor of APP Limited and NBFC, which was set up under the Companies Act and got itself registered as an NBFC with RBI, fulfilling the required criteria. During the year 25, the company commenced operations on a massive scale. You are informed that RBI has revised different facets of existing NBFC classification and regulation like capital requirement, government standards, prudential regulation, etc. based on 4 layers that are defined based on their size, activity and perceived riskiness. During 24-25, APP has accepted deposits of 900 crore, while its asset size is 990 crore. It has also undertaken the following activity: standalone primary dealer, infrastructure debt fund, housing finance and the infrastructure finance company. Those students who've done class with me know that they are talking about SITCHI. So layer, or what do you say, base layer is PANN, and then the our middle layer is the SITCHI, standalone primary dealer, infrastructure debt fund. Then they've not given the core investment company, right? Then the housing finance company and the infrastructure finance company. So here they are talking about the middle layer, right? So we remember our code word SITCHI. Okay, auditors are about to begin the audit for which your audit team has been asked to prepare an audit checklist. XYZ Associates LLP have been appointed as auditor of Heavy Electrical Corporation, a PSU, during 24-25 by CNAG. It has been intimated about the intention of taking a planned performance audit with the scope and extent of audit, including the constitution of audit team and the tentative time schedule well before the commencement of audit. The engagement partner has asked the audit team to prepare an ADM. So for performance audit, as it is a structured and highly focused approach for designing a performance audit study. The audit team has informed that ADM should be prepared on the basis of information and knowledge obtained during the planning stage. Further, it is desirable to prepare ADM for each of the audit objective. On the basis of the above detail, you are required to answer. Keeping in view of the information in para 2, identify under which layer APP will be categorized, right? So again, number 24 question, right? So it will be categorized under the middle layer NBFC, right? It will be categorized under the middle layer NBFC. Based on the facts given, you are required to compute the DTL balance as on September 30, 2024, right? So what does it say? 50,000 crore, which included the following, right? So now on my calculator, if I put 50,000 crore minus paid up capital, obviously it is not my demand and time liability. So I'll do minus 27,000. Then the reserves, obviously it is not my demand and time liability, right? Then it says credit balance in the profit and loss account. Again, it is not my demand and my time liability. Then loan taken from RBI, refinance taken from Exim Bank and NHB. Again, it is not my demand and time liability. Those loans I've taken from RBI, Exim, NHB. So that is why minus 575 minus 480. Okay, right. Then part amount of recovery from the borrower. So obviously if I've recovered the money from the borrower, it is not my liability. So minus 125. Net credit balance. That means I need to pay this. So this is my liability. Interest accrued but not accounted for. But again, it is my liability. I have to account for. I'll have to pay it on the later date. And margins held and kept in sundry deposits. So again, it's a margin held. So it is not my liability, right? So again, that is to be deducted, right? So it is coming to 18,880, right? It is coming to the 18,880, right? So 18,880 over there. And keeping in view of the information in para 3, in case of performance audit, which of the following is not a part of the ADM, which is not a part of the ADM? Right? So you have to look at the table which we draw under the audit design matrix. Does it have the, now again, if you go by logic, अगर PSU का चैप्टर ऑप्शन में छोड़ा है और फिर ये क्वेश्चन आता है, तो फिर लगता है यार ऑडिट प्रोग्राम, वो तो ऑडिट डिजाइन कर रहे तो भैया प्रोग्राम तो होना ही चाहिए. एविडेंस तो मैम वो तो ब्लड है, लाइक नर्वस सिस्टम है ऑडिट का क्वेश्चन पूछेंगे प्रोफेशनल स्केप्टिसिज्म से, मैम तभी तो बात बनेगी. अब मेरे को ही समझाते ऊपर से ऐसा एक्सप्लेनेशन लॉजिक डेवलप किया है. बोलते मैम ये क्या है, डेटा कलेक्शन एनालिसिस मेथड नहीं, हमारे ICAI ORR में ऐसा कुछ नहीं होता है, तो इसीलिए वो डी को आउट करते हैं, है ना. अभी तुम मत करना आउट. तो ये क्या है ना, ये लॉजिक के बेस्ड का आंसर है, क्योंकि जब नॉलेज नहीं होता है, लॉ नहीं होता है, तो हम अप्लाई करते हैं लॉजिक, और जैसे ही हम लॉजिक अप्लाई करते हैं उसी वक्त हमें एग्जाम फी फिर से भरनी पड़ती है ना. क्योंकि अगर हम PSU का चैप्टर पढ़े, राइट, तो चलो देख ही लेते हैं PSU का चैप्टर, है ना. तो अगर मैं, है ना, ICAI के वेबसाइट है ना, बोर्ड ऑफ स्टडीज नॉलेज पोर्टल पे इफ आई गो, ओके, close and then I come to study material, final है ये, okay, right. Then advanced auditing, and then I come to the module, and then overview of the audit of the public sector undertaking. Usme agar I come to the end of the chapter wherein they talk about the performance audit, and in the performance audit they talk about the planning for the performance audit, right? They talk about the planning for the performance audit, okay, right? So comprehensive audit, yeah, over here, and यहाँ पे है audit design matrix, है ना. So planning for performance audit, है ना. पहले performance audit का discussion है, और ना objectives of performance audit. बोलोगे मैम ये तो मैंने कुछ देखा ही नहीं है, तो ये देख लो अभी. ओके राइट, परफॉर्मेंस ऑडिट है ना, कि व्हाट इज परफॉर्मेंस ऑडिट, इकोनॉमी, एफिशिएंसी में एग्जाम में रिटेल क्वेश्चन आया हुआ है, फिर उसके बाद इफेक्टिवनेस ऑडिट, फिर बोलते हैं चलो अभी परफॉर्मेंस ऑडिट का प्लानिंग करते हैं, है ना। तो प्लानिंग इट सेज पहले तो अंडरस्टैंड, फिर अंडरस्टैंड के बाद एंटिटी प्रोग्राम, फिर ऑब्जेक्टिव स्कोप, फिर ऑडिट क्राइटेरिया, फिर ऑडिट क्राइटेरिया डिटरमाइन करने के क्या सोर्सेज है उसका एक क्वेश्चन बनता है, फिर ऑडिट अप्रोच, फिर उसके बाद ऑडिट क्वेश्चन, फिर आपके पास वो लोग है क्या, उसके बेसिस पे ऑडिट डिजाइन मैट्रिक्स, फिर टाइम टेबल एंड रिसोर्सेज, और फाइनली सबको बता दो कि हम आ रहे हैं, चलो इंटीमेशन ऑफ द ऑडिट प्रोग्राम टू द ऑडिट एंटिटीज। ओके, अगेन अंडरस्टैंडिंग, आप कैसे समझोगे वो गवर्नमेंट प्रोग्राम प्रोजेक्ट एक्टिविटी, उसका एक रिटेल क्वेश्चन है, तो ए कैन बी अ रिटेल क्वेश्चन। राइट, फिर ऑब्जेक्टिव एंड स्कोप, ऑडिट क्राइटेरिया, ये भी एक रिटेल क्वेश्चन है कि व्हाट आर द सोर्सेज ऑफ डिटरमाइनिंग द ऑडिट क्राइटेरिया, ये दिख रहा है सोर्सेज, है ना, सोर्सेज फॉर डिटरमाइनिंग। फिर ऑडिट अप्रोच, तो क्या अप्रोच हो सकता है, तो एनालिसिस ऑफ प्रोसीजर, एनालिसिस ऑफ रिजल्ट, क्वांटिटेटिव एनालिसिस, केस स्टडी, एग्जिस्टिंग डेटा सर्वे। राइट, फिर ऑडिट क्वेश्चन, ऑडिट टीम, एडीएम। अब देखो यहाँ एडीएम में ऑडिट ऑब्जेक्टिव, ऑडिट क्वेश्चन, ऑडिट क्राइटेरिया और एविडेंस, डेटा कलेक्शन एनालिसिस मेथड। ओके, अब आते हैं, किधर गया वो, हाँ, तो अब ये लॉजिक वाला बात खत्म करते हैं, है ना, लॉजिक को भी हटा दिया। ओके, तो क्या वो जो मैंने आपके साथ डिस्कस किया, क्या उसमें ऑडिट प्रोग्राम है, ऑडिट ऑब्जेक्टिव है, क्वेश्चन है, क्राइटेरिया, एविडेंस है, डेटा कलेक्शन एनालिसिस मेथड, क्या वहां पे क्राइटेरिया है, नहीं है। सो दैट मीन्स व्हाट, right, what is the correct option in this case, right, what is the correct option over here, right? So now, is there evidence, audit question, data collection analysis? Yes. Which of the following is not a part of the audit design matrix? Okay, so audit program is not a part of the audit design matrix. और जब आपको ये पता चलता है कि हाँ ऐसा क्वेश्चन एग्जाम में आता है, ये क्वेश्चन आया है, जैसे नॉर्मल कंटेंट देखते हैं तो लगता है हाँ ठीक है यार ये भी एक टॉपिक है, बट जैसे ही पता चलता है अरे ये ऐसा उन्होंने एग्जाम में पूछा था, वो क्वेश्चन को देखने का एकदम कॉन्टेक्स्ट या नजरिया ही बदल जाता है। बट प्लीज बच्चा, तुम्हें ना ये समझना है कि ऐसे बहुत सारे क्वेश्चंस हैं जो एग्जाम में पहले आपके ऊपर एक्सपेरिमेंट होंगे और आपके बाद जो पढ़ेंगे उनको ऐसे बताया जाएगा कि देखो इंस्टीट्यूट ने ऐसा ड्राफ्टिंग किया था, देखो इंस्टीट्यूट ने ये टॉपिक के ऊपर ऐसा क्वेश्चन बनाया था। तो हाँ, जो पूछा है ये वापस आ सकता है क्या? यस, ये एक कैटेगरी ऑफ क्वेश्चंस है, बट ऐसा बहुत कुछ होता है, ऐसा मतलब अराउंड 5-6 क्वेश्चंस इन द पेपर ऐसे होते हैं कि जो सिलेबस में है, ऐसा नहीं है कि ये ऑडिट डिजाइन मैट्रिक्स सिलेबस में नहीं है या नहीं था, नवंबर 24 के एग्जाम में वो था, बट पहली बार इंस्टीट्यूट ने उसका एमसीक्यू बनाया, फर्स्ट टाइम दे आस्क्ड अ क्वेश्चन ऑन दैट, राइट? सो यू बी प्रिपेयर्ड फॉर दैट। तो बस जैसे ही पता चलता है ये क्वेश्चन आया है, उसका देखने का नजरिया बदल जाता है, पर अरे भाई वो क्वेश्चंस भी तो पढ़ लो जो आज तक कभी आए नहीं और आपके एग्जाम में आ सकते हैं। मैं समझ रहा है मैं क्या बोल रही हूँ, मैं हिंदी में बोल रही हूँ, इतना तो समझ रहा है ना, राइट? सो दैट इज व्हाट यू नीड टू। अब तो यूट्यूब चैनल पे ऐसा कमाल है कि वो नो ऑटो डब करके इंग्लिश का ऑप्शन है, तो अब तो यू नो जो स्टूडेंट्स हु प्रेफर दैट दे वांट टू लिसन टू द वीडियो इन इंग्लिश, दे कैन जस्ट गो फॉर द ऑटो डब इंग्लिश ऑप्शन एंड वाओ, वंडरफुल डबिंग डन बाय यूट्यूब, है ना। तो मैं अब आराम से हिंदी में बात कर सकती हूँ, क्योंकि ना यूट्यूब का मैंने देखा है कि वो हिंदी का इंग्लिश में डबिंग ठीक ही कर लेता है, बट इंग्लिश को हिंदी में लाना थोड़ा वहां गड़बड़ हो जाता है, तो इसीलिए हिंदी टू इंग्लिश इज बेटर। ओके राइट, तो माइंड सेट चेंज करो, प्रोग्रामिंग ऑफ द माइंड चेंज होना चाहिए टुवर्ड्स द सब्जेक्ट ऑफ ऑडिट। जब भी कोई टॉपिक पढ़ो तो सोचना है इसका थियरी क्वेश्चन कैसे आ सकता है, इसका केस स्टडी कैसे आ सकता है, इसका इंस्टीट्यूट स्पेसिफिक क्वेश्चन कैसे पूछ सकती है, इसका एमसीक्यू कैसे बन सकता है, ऐसे उसका 360 डिग्री एनालिसिस करो एंड देन यू प्रोसीड फर्दर, है ना। फेल होना मुश्किल हो जाएगा, तुम बोलोगे मैम वही तो चाहिए, तो फिर हो ही जाएगा वो, ठीक है। ओके, सो मिडिल लेयर शैल कंसिस्ट ऑफ ऑल डिपॉजिट टेकिंग, है ना, सिच्ची, राइट? सो इट विल बी ऑल डिपॉजिट टेकिंग। तो एनीवे सिच्ची देखने की जरूरत ही नहीं है, क्योंकि क्या बोला है, ऑल डिपॉजिट टेकिंग, इट हैज एक्सेप्टेड डिपॉजिट्स। और मिडिल लेयर में क्या आता है, ऑल डिपॉजिट टेकिंग एनबीएफसी, राइट? देन 18,880 crore, राइट? सो व्हाट इज टू बी, व्हाट इज नॉट टू बी टेकन, इट सेज व्हाट इज इंक्लूडेड इन योर लाइबिलिटी ओवर देयर, net credit balance and interest accrued but not due. Rest everything is to be excluded from the deposits, right? Rest everything is to be excluded. An audit program. So audit program is not a part of the ADN. Okay, right. So that finally brings us to case scenario 35. Arpan Films is a distributor of movies in the state of West Bengal. The company has a significant interest in other operating segments and operates through multiple subsidiaries. At the console level, major operating segments comprise of movie distribution, selling tea from self-owned tea gardens at Assam, real estate development for commercial purpose, and an investment in groups and startup entities. The group was founded by Rishu, the Group Managing Director, and Prashant, an old confidant of Rishu. Unfortunately, Rishu met with an accident and expired. His untimely death rattled the entire group and disrupted the business operations of the group. The board of the parent company decided to induct his son Vishu as the Managing Director of the parent company and the group. The appointment of Vishu enraged Mr. Prashant, and he filed an application of operation of mismanagement with the NCLT, alleged various wrongdoings including inappropriate RPT, siphoning of funds through connected entities, and manipulation of financial statements. Considering the gravity of the allegation, the existing auditor of parent company tendered his resignation, Auditor Bhagya. The board appointed Shubh Labh and LLP as the new auditor. Shubh Labh LLP informed the previous auditor over the phone, phone पे नहीं चलता है NOC, and accepted the appointment. After 5 months, Shubh Labh LLP sent an email to previous auditor. After 5 months, as a professional courtesy, stating that the appointment was for the auditor. The previous auditor replied by stating received. After 5 months, not done. To deal with these allegations, the board of the parent company initiated a forensic investigation covering all the major operating segments through an independent professional services firm. The conclusion of the investigation significantly delayed the submission of financial statements for the current year. The outcome of the forensic investigation included the following. Matter 1. Neil Limited, a subsidiary, is the real estate arm of the group and a significant receivable from various partnership firm LLP. The investigation revealed that these advances, which have been outstanding for more than a decade, were given for the purchase of land. Further, the identity of those entities could not be traced as no PAN GST were available with the subsidiary company. Any attempt to contact these entities proved futile. It also noted that the auditors of Neil had already completed the Auditor under Companies Act. Hemant and Manna LLP, the auditor of Neil, informed the investigator in their view the allegations do not affect the financial statements of Neil, and accordingly have issued an unmodified opinion for the current year. Financial statements and audit report were adopted by shareholders in AGM. Arpan Films Limited, the parent company, historically purchases music right from Sangeet, which is approximately INR 20 crore per annum. Sangeet is controlled by Prashant. At the beginning of the current year, an advance of 50 crore was given to Sangeet for the purchase of music rights. Any amount remaining unadjusted would be repaid over a period of 5 years. The advance amount is highly disproportionate to the expected purchase amount to be made, and the credit period is not within the normal credit term. Investigation revealed that the advance was given to provide financial support to Sangeet Limited as it was undergoing financial distress. As at the end of the year, 30 crore remain unadjusted. No interest was charged in the unadjusted amount. Oh my God, looks like Satyam in the making. Assam Tea is the CGU of TU Limited, a Teacup Limited, a subsidiary company. The unit generates negative cash flow and is expected to do so in the future. Accordingly, it should have been impaired. However, the cash flow projection was fabricated to avoid recognition of impairment expenses in the previous year. There was a disagreement between subsidiary management and the auditor. The auditor in the audit report under the Companies Act issued a qualified opinion stating that impairment loss was under-recorded. From the context, the consolidated financial statements understatement of impairment expense would reduce the consolidated net profit asset net worth. Based on the above facts, answer. So according to my understanding, this is a super important question. No surprise if I see if any of the upcoming exams, this could be an entire case study which could come in your paper, right? So very, 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 very important. What if it doesn't come? No problem. At least you've done the practice, right? But yeah, reading it, looking at the content, I certainly think that this could be one of the forthcoming case studies. Okay. Shubh and Labh are guilty for misconduct for excess. Shubh Labh associate guilty for the professional misconduct for accepting the audit of Arpan. Right? So yes, Shubh and Labh are guilty. The email response of the previous audit include the reasons for their resignation. Yes, Shubh and Labh are guilty. As a matter of courtesy, Shubh and Labh should have intimated its appointment as an auditor to through the previous auditor through RPAD instead of sending an email. No, even email is allowed, but it has to be sent before. Yes, Shubh Labh and LLP are guilty of misconduct. As a matter of professional courtesy, Shubh Labh should not have intimated its appointment by telephone. Okay, Shubh Labh and company are guilty of misconduct. As a matter of professional courtesy, Shubh Labh should have communicated to the predecessor auditor via email before accepting the appointment. Right? So what is the problem over here? 5 months later. And now, after 5 months, Shubh Labh, so board appointed as the auditor, and Shubh Labh and company informed the previous auditor over the phone and accepted the appointment. After 5 months, they sent an email to the previous auditor. So that is where the problem is. And now they sent it, through email, and also the acknowledgement has been received from the previous auditor. But now it does not serve the purpose. Right? So what does it say? Email of the response of the previous auditor does not include the reasons for resignation, not a valid reason. Should have intimated its appointment as the auditor to the previous auditor through registered post. No, it can be registered post. Even email accepted method for communication with the previous auditor. It says should not have intimated its appointment by telephone. Yes, so it says it should not have been done by telephone. So it's like between C and D. But it says they are guilty as a matter of courtesy. So more legal backing. Should have communicated to the previous auditor via email before accepting the appointment. So what does it say? Before. When do you send the request for NOC? Before accepting the appointment, not before starting the audit, before accepting the audit. No, before accepting the audit. Okay. Now, since the subsidiary Neel Limited was already audited by other auditor, whether Shubh Labh have to compulsorily rely on the financial statements audit report of the auditor of Neel Limited while auditing the CFS. Yes, under SA 600, it is compulsory for every principal auditor to rely on solely on the audited financial statements of every group company. No auditor is not compelled to use the work of other auditor. SA 600 requires the principal auditor to assess the appropriateness of the components auditor work prior to placing reliance on such work. Principal auditor is not the statutory auditor of the component. As principal auditor has no option but to rely on the financials of the subsidiary. This is not a good option. No, the subsidiary company was audited under the provisions of Companies Act and not for the purpose of preparing CFS. Kuch bhi. Right, so what does it say? Principal auditor is not compelled to use the work of other auditor. SA 600 requires the principal auditor to assess the appropriateness of the component auditor work prior to placing the reliance on such work. And a C cube ADV, right? Competence of the other auditor, then also coordinate with the other auditor, consider the significant findings of the other auditor. So CCC, advise the other auditor, discuss the other auditor, visit the branch if required. That is the evaluation. Management of Arpan Limited parent reconciles its balances with the customers and vendors at an interim period. Shubh and Labh also decided to send independent requests to the customers and vendors to confirm their balance as of the year end. With the risk of material misstatement assessed to be low, the top 15 parties comprising 5% of the customers and 7% of the vendors were selected to obtain the confirmations. Right? So top 15 parties, 5% of the customers, 7% of the vendors were selected to obtain the external confirmation. Is the sampling strategy appropriate? Okay, right. So it says inappropriate in all the 4 cases. Now only we have to be satisfied with the reason. Sample size appears to be insufficient. Method of sample selection does not allow each item in the population a chance of selection. Sample method is judgmental and not statistical based. Right. So they have selected top 15 parties considering the underlying audit risk. What does it say? They were Shubh and Labh Limited, right? Assess the RMM to be low. Okay, considering the underlying audit risk, external confirmation from all the customers and vendors should be obtained. No. Rely on confirmations obtained by management and perform roll forward procedures to arrive at the year-end balance. No. So now C and D is out. So now between A and B. It says sampling method is judgmental and not statistical based. And second, it says sample size appears to be insufficient. Method of sample selection does not allow each item in the population a chance of selection. Right? So wherein each item in the population should be given an equal chance of being selected. That is why we say that it is inappropriate. Right? So top 15 parties comprising 5% customers, 7% vendors. So each item in the population has not been given a chance of selection. Right? Would the advance for purchasing music rights to the extent remaining unadjusted 30 crore require reporting under the clause 3 of the CARO 2020 risk loans investments guarantee security. No advance for purchase of goods is not a loan advance in the nature of loan, thus it is not covered. No, in the absence of interest charge, the advance would neither qualify as a loan nor an advance in the nature of loan. It is not covered. Not covered. Yes, the intent was to provide financial support, not purchase goods. The amount of the advance and settlement period are excessive and not as per the normal trade practice. It should be reported as an advance in the nature of loan. Yes, advance for purchase of goods is covered under the above clause. No. So what would be the correct explanation over here? Is the intent was to provide financial support. So loans and advances in the nature of loan, right? Both are covered. Shubh and Labh LLP considered the qualification of the auditor of Teacup Limited. They concluded that the audit opinion on the CFS of the group would be, right? So what is it? 1%, 0.5% and 2% is the effect of the impairment expense on the consolidation, right? So what does it say? Unmodified effect on the as the effect of misstatement is not material to the group. Unmodified opinion as it is not material. However, the subsidiary auditor issue qualified opinion should be highlighted in the audit report through emphasis of matter. Qualified as subsidiary auditor has issued qualified opinion. Qualified to the extent it relates to subsidiary and unmodified to the extent it relates to the group. Kuch bhi, right? We've not studied anything like that, putting it under the emphasis of matter. So unmodified as the effect of the misstatement is not material to the group. Okay, right? So Shubh Labh are guilty of misconduct as they should have communicated with the previous auditor before the accepting the appointment. Right? Cannot accept a position as an auditor previously held by another chartered accountant without first communicating with him in writing. Right. Principal auditor, he has to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence whether the work is adequate for the purpose of the audit, right? So whether the work is adequate. Right. Then it says sample, it should be representative. Each item in the population should have an equal chance of being selected. When designing an audit sample, the auditor shall consider the purpose of the audit procedure and the characteristics of the population. The auditor will determine a sample size sufficient to reduce sampling risk to a low level. Auditor will select a sample in such a way that each sampling unit in the population has an equal chance of being selected. Okay, right. So yes, the intent was to provide the financial support. Clause 3 says, right, the advances in the nature of loans are also included. The intent was to provide financial support, not purchase goods. The amount of the advance and settlement period are excessive and not as per the normal trade practice. It should be treated as an advance in the nature of a loan. And unmodified as the effect is not material to the group. As per 600, in all circumstances, if the auditor issues or intends to issue a modified audit report, the principal auditor should consider whether the subject of the modification is of such nature and significance in relation to the financial information of the entity on which the principal auditor is reporting that it requires the modification of the principal auditor report. So here it is only 1% and 2% and 0.5%. So it does not require a modification of the principal auditor report. So unmodified as the effect of the misstatement is not material to the group. So what is it? Drop by drop the ocean gets filled, right? So we had 35 case scenarios to be done, 73 pages document, right? So initial pages and so total 177 pages of the document. But yeah, over a period of time, patiently, right, have we colored the entire book? For me, whether I've completed teaching all the content, the simple way is to check that whether all the pages are colored. If all the pages are colored, that means it's done. Okay, right? So thank you so much for your patient listening. कि आपने पूरा 35 case scenario देखा. So a pat on the back for that for all of you, and wishing you all the very best for your exams. And I know you're going to do that. Please pass this on to all the further students who would be writing their CA final exams in the upcoming future. Wishing you all the very best for everything and all that you do. Thank you.